white apron of a ship's cook. They wanted to witness the Red October's first operational cruise. And besides, sailors will do almost anything to break the monotony of their duties. Ordinarily, it would have irritated Ramius to have his ship escorted out. The channel here was wide and deep, but not today. The ice was something to worry about, and so, for Ramius, was a great deal else. "So, my captain, again we go to sea to serve and protect the Rodina." Captain Second Rank Ivan Yurievich Putin poked his head through the hatch, without permission as usual, and clambered up the ladder with the awkwardness of a landsman. The tiny control station was already crowded enough with the captain, the navigator, and a mute lookout. Putin was the ship's Zampolit, political officer. Everything he did was to serve the Rodina, motherland, a word that had mystical connotations to a Russian, and along with V.I. Lenin was the Communist Party's substitute for a godhead. "Indeed, Ivan," Ramius replied with more good cheer than he felt. 2 weeks at sea. It is good to leave the dock. A seaman belongs at sea, not tied alongside, overrun with bureaucrats and workmen with dirty boots. And we will be warm." "You find this cold?" Putin asked incredulously. For the 100th time, Ramius told himself that Putin was the perfect political officer. His voice was always too loud, his humor too affected. He never allowed a person to forget what he was. The perfect political officer. Putin was an easy man to fear. "I have been in submarines too long, my friend. I grow accustomed to moderate temperatures and a stable deck under my feet." Putin did not notice the veiled insult. He'd been assigned to submarines after his first tour on destroyers had been cut short by chronic seasickness, and perhaps because he did not resent the close confinement aboard submarines, something that many men cannot tolerate. "Ah, Marko Alexandrovich, in Gorky on a day like this, flowers bloom." "And what sort of flowers might those be, comrade political officer?" Ramius surveyed the fjord through his binoculars. At noon the sun was barely over the southeast horizon, casting orange light and purple shadows along the rocky walls. "Why, snowflowers, of course," Putin said, laughing loudly. "On a day like this, the faces of the children and the women glow pink. Your breath trails behind you like a cloud, and the vodka tastes especially fine. Ah, to be in Gorky on a day like this." The bastard ought to work for in tourists, Ramius told himself, except that Gorky is a city closed to foreigners. He had been there twice. It had struck him as a typical Soviet city, full of ramshackle buildings, dirty streets, and ill-clad citizens. As it was in most Russian cities, winter was Gorky's best season. The snow hid all the dirt. Ramius, half Lithuanian, had childhood memories of a better place, a coastal village whose Hanseatic origin had left rows of presentable buildings. It was unusual for anyone other than a great Russian to be aboard, much less command a Soviet naval vessel. Marko's father, Alexander Ramius, had been a hero of the party, a dedicated, believing communist who had served Stalin faithfully and well. When the Soviets first occupied Lithuania in 1940, the elder Ramius was instrumental in rounding up political dissidents, shop owners, priests, and anyone else who might have been troublesome to the new regime. All were shipped off to fates that now even Moscow could only guess at. When the Germans invaded a year later, Alexander fought heroically as a political commissar, and was later to distinguish himself in the Battle of Leningrad. In 1944 he returned to his native land with the spearhead of the 11th Guards Army to wreak bloody vengeance on those who had collaborated with the Germans, or been suspected of such. Marko's father had been a true Soviet hero, and Marko was deeply ashamed to be his son. His mother's health had been broken during the endless siege of Leningrad. She died giving birth to him, and he was